Hearings on the Benghazi attacks continued this afternoon, this time in the House of Representatives. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appeared before the House Foreign Affairs Committee to answer more questions about the September 11th attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. While Republican members continued to harp on her performance, Democrats eagerly came to her defense.
I want to take this opportunity to let you know how much we appreciate your outstanding and tireless efforts to represent our country in the international community. I have no doubt that you will continue to serve our nation in some capacity as you have for so many years, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And might I add, as a New Yorker, I feel especially proud of the wonderful and outstanding job you've done as Secretary of State.
Joining us to discuss this is HuffPost foreign policy correspondent Josh Hirsch. Hey, Josh.
Hey, how's it going?
So, I mean, come on, this is kind of like political theater, isn't it? The Republicans pull her up and they dump all over her, and the Democrats pull her up and they fawn over her. Does this really matter?
Oh man, not normally I would tell you they do, but not this one. This afternoon has been really, really difficult to watch, to be honest. I mean, I've actually been watching these hearings now since about 8 or 9 this morning, and if only it had ended after that Elliot Engel quote you just saw, then if the curtain had come down then, life would have been just fine. But it's been, there's something like 46 members of the House panel that's been questioning.
And they each want to, want to say something to her, I bet, right? Each of them have this prepared statement that they want to throw at Hillary, right? Yeah,
that's exactly right. And in a lot of cases, they have questions for her, but they don't really particularly care for the answer, or they don't really want to give her time to give the answer. So the questions, it becomes this sort of 4.5-minute litany of questions, followed by a request that she provide some answers in writing, which is it's a little bit silly, and it's a little bit of a shame, to be totally honest, because what happened in Benghazi, while I don't think it really rises to the level of 9/11 or the Iraq War or something like that, clearly was a fairly catastrophic failure on some level of the State Department's security and the Department of Defense, and there are serious questions that ought to be pursued, but they're not being pursued this afternoon.
Right. Do you feel like these these members kind of have a soundbite that they're trying to get out? Particularly?
Yeah, I think that's basically right. I mean, look, this morning in the Senate, it was to some extent the same thing. I mean, you're going to always see this with members of Congress, that they have sound bites they want to pursue, and they just want to get their point out, and then they can put a link to it on YouTube and then tweet about it and blah blah blah. But I mean, there are substantive questions that have come up and interesting exchanges that happened this morning when there was a little bit more time with the senators. But the House, it's just a little bit silly.
One of those exchanges that people are talking about is the Rand Paul exchange. Can we show the clip of Rand Paul, please?
I'm glad that you're accepting responsibility. I think that ultimately with your leaving, you accept the culpability for the worst tragedy since 9/11. And I really mean that. Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable.
Okay, so if I would have been president at the time, do you think that's where Paul's going with that one?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Somebody tweeted that Hillary should have stopped listening after "if I were president." But again, I think there's an interesting question to be asked here about the flow of information back and forth between Benghazi and Washington, and in particular between the regional security officers in Benghazi and the ambassador, and what sort of things they were asking for, and who was reading those emails and memos, and how seriously were they being taken. And those are interesting questions, but the notion that the secretary herself should have seen them and should have considered them, I mean, that's a sort of bizarre, I think, way to take this, frankly.
Right. So, Hillary didn't, it's not that Hillary didn't fight back at all during this hearing. Let's take a look at her response to Ron Johnson.
Again, we were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator. Now, honestly, I will do my best to answer your questions about this, but the fact is that people were trying in real time to get to the best information. The IC has a process, I understand, going with the other committees to explain how these talking points came out. But, you know, to be clear, it is, from my perspective, less important today, looking backwards, as to why these militants decided they did it, than to find them and bring them to justice.
Now, I have a personal issue with what she just said there. She thinks it's more important to bring them to justice than to find out why these militants may have done this. That's such an American response to an attack that we've seen for countless years since the war on terror began.
Yeah, I think in a way she's mixing maybe two different time periods or two different kind of ways of viewing this. I mean, I think from the point of view of State Department officials who were just being bombarded in mid and late September about their failure to communicate clearly and concisely with the American people exactly what was happening and why, which was interpreted by people in the Republican Party or on Fox and some other places as an intentional misdirection, and was always understood as in the State Department as just a lack of clarity. I think in that period, you know, I think what she's trying to say is we were much more interested in that period in understanding what was going on in that immediate crisis, which, by the way, included a number of different embassies around the world, than we were in really trying to deeply ascertain exactly the motivations. Now, though, I think you're right. I mean, I think now understanding why that took place is incredibly important, and I think that soundbite may. I think she probably, if I had to totally guess, I imagine she regrets losing her cool like that, and she certainly didn't in the hearing in the House this afternoon. Hasn't at any point reacted that quite as strongly to anything.
Well, especially within the context of Libya, it's incredibly important to find out why that happened, why the militants were striking in Libya, considering our involvement there. I want to jump to a comment from our community members. Laugh Motron says, Fox Ghazi has run its course. Let it go. There were mistakes. Was it a bigger cover-up than Watergate? No. Let's go to our community and talk to them about this. Nina Melendez from New York, New York. Reina Ramirez from Boston, Massachusetts. And Tommy McFly from Washington, D.C. Tommy, I love your last name. As a Back to the Future fan, I love your last name. Guys, has Fox Ghazi, as Laugh Motron calls it, run its course for you guys? McFly, you.
I don't know that it has. I think that, like you were saying earlier, I think this is more of the political theater. You know, it's going to be happening for quite some time. Listening to the way things kept getting brought up was almost like being at Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. You know, remember 10 years ago when XYZ happened to the family. And I think that, you know, you had two people on that panel who are prospective GOP presidential nominees for 2016. I'm not saying that I'm a Democrat or Republican, but you know, they definitely had a chance to take pot shots at a woman who now is what everyone on the Democratic side is talking about being the front runner for 2016.
Right. Reina, do you think that Hillary might be the front runner for 2016?
If she decides to run, she definitely is.
But that's what people thought. But that's what people thought about her in 2008, and a candidate came out of nowhere and blew her out of the water. Not to rehash the past too much, but hey, that's what I'm doing.
That's true, but I think that, you know, she's done a lot in her position as Secretary of State to drown out some of the criticism that might have existed around the 2008 primary election. I think that I think she's proven herself to be capable and also, you know, not as there were a lot of critiques that might have been lobbed at her because of her gender, but besides that one clip, I think she's been calm, cool, and collected, and I'd be proud to have her as our president in 2016 and beyond.
Right. I mean, she's done a lot. Like, she's visited a lot of countries, which is what she keeps saying and the media keeps saying about her. Nina, do you think it's enough to just visit a lot of countries, or do you think she's actually taken a large part in American diplomacy around the world? Nina, you're muted. I'm sorry. Just want to click the upper right of your computer screen.
Got
and
it.
start talking. There you go.
Sorry. No, I think that she's done a great job. I think that visiting countries and representing the United States in a lot of countries around the world has definitely helped our image. And I think that she has done a lot of work, of beneficial work, helping disenfranchised communities around the world in the United States. I think that she's done a great job for us, for America.
Josh, do you personally think that Hillary's done a fantastic job repairing the image of the United States around the world, or do you think she's just been a great traveler?
I refuse to have an opinion on that, but she's obviously traveled a lot. And yeah, I mean, on some level, when the Obama administration came into office, the American reputation around the world was pretty bad, and it's not as bad now. So Hillary Clinton deserves some credit for that.